We're going to go into our first panel. So if I could get Beau Darcy, Elizabeth Hagerman, and Yvette up on stage. They'll be fielding questions right now. So I just want to thank Matt again. That was an awesome speech. I'm starting to see that type of evolution here at Rose. I'm seeing it in a lot of students that are at the club itself. I just hope that this journey can continue. Right now, this panel is going to be about idea creation. So Matt was talking about it a lot. He went through like 4 or 5 different business ideas to finally hit a winner. He's going to be in the process of that. There are some people in this room who are always in the process of figuring out what's the next big thing. How am I going to change the world? But we run into roadblocks when we do that. For people who aren't engineers, that's called creative block. But these guys standing up on stage right now, they've kind of faced that problem, and they've had a lot of success in the area. So without further ado, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. All right. I think the mics up there are going to work just fine, so take a seat.
Oh, I guess I'll go first. Hi, my name is Yvette Kendall, and I am in idea creation and product development. Okay, I'll start again. My name is Yvette Kendall, and I am in product development and idea creation for futuristic products and current products that are on the market. I've been working in this field since 1998. My first development in 98 was the first development of an e-reader. And from there, worked with that for a while, and it progressed to other products. My second development was watching TV. These clean cups, they're antibacterial disposable drinking cups. They have a antibacterial clear varnish. Watching TV, talking to people, seeing what's missing in the life of people that go by every day. And from that point, I got a following of people liking what I did, and I started to develop products almost a weekly basis. So currently, I hold up to about 35 patents and patent pendings for the work that I do. And I'm from Chicago.
Right. My name is Beau Darcy. I'm a mechanical engineering major. I finished up here at Rose in 2003. Did a stint at Eli Lilly for 6 years in Indianapolis, and then went out and got my MBA at Harvard Business School, finished up in 2010, and have since been on the entrepreneurial journey, which was a good word described in the keynote, or the entrepreneurial roller coaster, as a lot of people like to call it, since then. So I'm on my third startup now called B2 Entertainment Group. We're bringing a Vegas-style pool club, day club, to the Chicago market, and we figured out a creative way to enable you to feel like you're at Miami and South Beach, even if it's January in Chicago time. So that's what we're working on now.
My name's Elizabeth Hagerman. Sorry, I'm kind of in the process of losing my voice, so bear with me. Sorry about that. I also graduated from Rose-Hulman 2000. Then I went off to grad school. Rose-Hulman, I did chemical engineering. Grad school, I did biomedical engineering at UCLA. Right out of grad school, I began working with Baxter Bioscience, and my role there was to do the technical assessment for the mergers and acquisition targets that Baxter was in the process of identifying. And through that process, I really got the chance to see where sometimes there's a divide between the science aspect and the business aspect, where I think there shouldn't be sometimes. So we would sit in meetings evaluating some small startups, sometimes other large companies that we were interested in acquiring, and often the people with the technical knowledge would be kind of sitting in the back corners, kind of the second show to some of the business operation going on. And I didn't like that thought very much because, the scientific person or the technology person was often the one who came up with the idea. It was their original idea, their intellectual property, and then they had to sort of pass it off to a business person. So I think if we can work to develop that business and entrepreneurial mindset and tools that are needed to advance a business in a technologically trained person, it's really a powerful situation. So I continue to have several different roles in Baxter over time, and then most recently I have taken the position of Vice President of Rose-Hulman Ventures starting in July. And there, probably many of you are familiar with Rose-Hulman Ventures, but we have the opportunity to help both small and large companies meet their developmental needs to advance their business. So we can apply the technology and engineering skills to advance that development process, help them get that prototyping phase complete, help them get to that next level where they can get it to a commercial development stage and sell products. So I've seen it from a little bit of a different side than the straight entrepreneurs, but I think some of what I've seen can kind of help guide some of the needs that you all have experienced.
All right. At this time, we're going to be fielding questions for our panel. So does anybody in the crowd have a question about idea creation, something along those lines? Don't be shy, guys.
So, when you have an idea, and I'm sure you probably have dozens every day, how do you vet that? What's your process? Because I guess when I'm sitting down and I think of something, the first thing I think is, oh, that's a great idea. But then I spend 20 minutes on it and I say, oh, that's not so great. So is there a process you go through to vet your ideas, to pick what are the best ideas that you have and go after them?
Well, I'm sure like everybody out in the room, I have a book in my bag that's got pages of ideas. You're on the train, you get out of the shower, you're shaving, whatever. Mine's always racing with new ideas. And so I think first and foremost, make sure you write all that stuff down. Don't forget about those, because by the time you walk out of the bathroom door, you've probably lost 2 or 3 of them that you had in the shower. So make sure you record those things, because you can go back through, and I'm looking through my book now that's got ideas that are 10 years old in it, and it's mind-blowing, the things, some of which have come to fruition and a lot of which have not. But once you do get that idea that you think might have legs, obviously the first place everybody likes to go is Google. It's a pretty easy stop shop to see if anybody has tried it. And the one thing that I'll say is that if somebody has tried it, I would say a lot of times that's almost a good thing. I mean, like Facebook and MySpace, usually the ones that really hit the home run are not necessarily the first in the space. So find what other people have tried, try it yourself, sign up for it, see if you like their service, see if they're good at what they say they do. And if you don't feel they are, then there might be an opportunity to take what they've done and really build on that and be successful.
I would play my own devil's advocate. Is this a product that I would want? Is this something I would pay for? Is it easy to achieve it? What is the cost going to be? Because you have to separate fantasy from reality to a point. Is it going to cost me more to achieve it than it would sell for in the stores? Would a company buy it for something that I think it would be worth? Those are a lot of the things that you would, search for when you are looking into a product. And sometimes the simplest things are the best things, and sometimes you can have something very overt and complicated that won't sell very much at all. I know when I developed the e-reader, I had it assessed, and they said they gave me a 1 and 10 being the best as far as being practical, and if the environment of the world would use something like that. And here we are now, barely, going to turn a page of a book anymore. So people, which is another frustration, getting people to understand your idea and your concept in order to have some type of team believe in what you're doing. And it's not going to be a lot of people at first. I mean, 30 years ago, who thought we'd be walking around with bottled water? So everything to me is a good idea. It's just how far you're going to push it and what you're going to put into it, and how much capital you have to invest into it to get it started. So that's my particular belief.
Our idea is going to be faced with some marketing challenge, some regulatory challenge. There are concepts in your marketplace that, unless those are carefully vetted, you might be thrown for a loop in a way. And I think we've seen that from several different aspects. Sometimes people think the technology is great, get people on board with the technology without fully vetting sort of the market space. So I think that's another key component.
Sorry about that. So while we're fielding questions, just make sure that you throw up your hand, keep it up so that we can have the mics go around. basically get to your question. So with that, does anybody else have other questions?
Right. I have a two-part question. The first one is directed towards Yvette. Second one is more in general. My question towards Yvette is, what part of the e-reader did you work on in particular, like the GUI, or was it the hardware of the tablet itself, or the idea to put a book on a tablet? And the general question is that when you're making a product that depends on another product, how did you choose your platform?
When I came up with the idea for the e-reader, it was the beginning of that type of concept of CD-ROMs and things like that. And at the time, I worked for Michael Jordan's restaurant, and I worked in human resources, and I was taking a break, and I was looking out the window, and I saw all these college students walking around with these humongous book bags, and it looked like, they were carrying people. And I was like, oh my gosh, it should be something. They should be able to have a device that you basically upload the books on and carry the device, and maybe the CD-ROMs or whatever way, because uploading was not as popular back in 1998. And I went to an invention assistance place, and I filed the paperwork with them. They filed some information with the USPTO. First time of me doing anything and everything of that magnitude. Didn't know what I was doing. And the concept and the functionality, the look, what it would do and what it wouldn't do, that's what was filed for me back when. And unfortunately, when they rated it a number one, and trying to find someone to actually do the hardware for me, and not knowing engineering and things, it just seemed like an impossible task. And when you spoke to everybody, oh, this would be $30,000. Oh, this will be $20,000. This would, and you're sitting here making $11 an hour. You're going like, all righty, next. And that's kind of what happened with that. Now, when you're building on an existing product, and a lot of people do that, and it's kind of, it's really technically easy to do. If I do that, I always look at what they missed and what could elaborate that product to make it better for a bigger audience or a bigger usage. And that's just what I do.
So for your general question, one thing that I would kind of caution folks on is that if you feel like the idea that you have relies too heavily on somebody else's idea, especially that other idea being successful or maybe not have seen the light of day yet, just need to be really careful with that, because it puts yourself in a vulnerable position, not only because you need them to succeed for you to succeed, but they could essentially do what you're doing if they're in the process of delivering their technology as well. So you just have to be very careful about that and see what there is that maybe they don't protect as well as do well. So find out the niche that they missed, and how do you protect that with a patent or a trademark or whatever it is, but make sure you're going to be able to build a barrier around yourself. We call it a moat, like a castle. You want to be able to really protect yourself and separate, even if you do need that other technology to win.
I've got a question myself. So when you're going through the process of coming up with a new idea, there are times where you just walk out of the shower and you're like, this would be a great idea, but there are times where you do research around it. Is that been the case with anything you guys have created?
Oh, I research everything. You can't assume that you are the only one that had this idea. You just can't. And when you're developing something that you haven't seen on TV or in a movie or in current market, you tend to think, okay, it's not out there. And there's a lot of people's products that are patented that just have not made it to the market, or even worse, they're in the process of doing a patent, and it has not been made public yet. So you just have to research everything and file the appropriate patents.
I would agree with that. We come across several people who come to Rose-Hulman Ventures and say, oh, I've got this great idea, and literally it takes 2 seconds of Googling to say, well, it is a great idea. Here's someone else who did it. So I think one of the best things to do is really spend a lot of time preparing yourself, be the expert, do the research. It's important.
And I think as well as, I mean, knowing that you're going to have to get out there and get your hands dirty with research is knowing where to go. So a couple of places I would suggest to play around with. Google has a patent search feature that's
Wonderful.
not widely known, but it's out there and it's amazing. I mean, they must have somebody in the U.S. PTO that's just photocopying all the patents in on putting them online. So it's a free service that used to be pretty expensive to leverage. So definitely if you have an idea, play around with their keyword search and see if anybody has similar products. And if there are similar ideas in there, again, to my point earlier, don't be afraid of it. Print it off, put it in a folder, make sure you remember that for the future. And then the other source that I find really helpful that's not really well known either is the Harvard Business Review website. They put out all of the case studies that HBS uses and a lot of other business school uses as well. And it's amazing how much what I would consider pretty sensitive information that companies will give HBS in the process of writing a case study that's publicly available in the case study, from financials to insider ideas to thoughts that they were going through at the point of a decision. So do searches in hbr.org, find case studies that were written in relevant fields, pull them up, read them. I think they're $6 a piece, back to my alma mater. So make sure you use those tools and find others. There are lots of them. And keep track of those tools, because what works with one idea will work down the road when you have others.
So how do you address the issue of appropriation of time? And this may segue a little bit away from idea creation, because I think anybody sitting in this room is probably creative enough that they do have a lot of ideas. But I'm sitting there thinking, if like you, if you have a job, you have to do well on that job. When do you, or how do you give yourself like creative space to just sit down and think of ideas, or do they just come at all different times of day? Because if there's a structured process, maybe more ideas can be vetted more quickly versus writing down random ideas and then 3 months later you go back and look at it type thing. So how do you address appropriation of time and when you take that leap into pursuing an idea per se?
I mean, there are some more formal segue points that you can create in your life that can be helpful. So for me, it was business school. I was in the corporate world at Lilly. I knew I wanted to do something on my own. I knew I needed a break point to create the time to get there. So I looked at business school as an opportunity not only to learn a lot about the other side of the world that I hadn't been exposed to before, finance, accounting, marketing, so forth, but it also gave me a lot of time, and particularly school projects, student internships. I mean, there's a lot of time available that you can tailor towards whatever idea you want to figure out. But if you don't have the opportunity to go to school full time, a lot of people don't, just have to really dedicate. I mean, it's like anything else. You got to really put your heart into it. If you're in 5 non-for-profits and you're volunteering at your kids' schools and you still think there's going to be time at the end of the day to sit down and really dedicate to an idea and make it come to fruition, I mean, you're kind of kidding yourself. You have to really say, I'm going to clear out my schedule. I have work during the day, and I have this, plus family, plus whatever else is really important at night. And you just have to stick to that.
Well, I'm able to do my work full-time. I've been lucky enough to do some licensing of the products that I've developed, and I live off the money that I license for and create more products and go to bigger and better places. So I don't have to divide my time like most people, would with school and work and things like that. So it works out great for me. But I know that's a rare opportunity. I don't want people to think that's the norm. Most people, continue to have to have their family, their work, their school, and whatever. And talking to corporations to get licensing, I have just been blessed to be able to call and get the president of the company and get a meeting. That's not the case for everybody. A lot of them are blocked by the secretary, and if she likes what you're saying, she may pass the message along. So unfortunately, you have to be creative in getting through the keepers of the gate in order to get to where you want to go, because what he or she may not find a great product to add to their roster, the owner of the company or research and development may find it great. So just have to be relentless in trying to get to the right people.
As far as implementing idea creation, as someone with a technological background, when you wanted to implement that idea creation, is it something that, as far as the business aspects of it and all of the entrepreneurial details, is that something that you can kind of learn on the way? Or is it a really good idea to fit in that continuing education and be prepared with those details?
I mean, I've seen it successful both ways. I mean, you got guys like Matt earlier that learn through the school of hard knocks, and you just get out there, you sell newspapers, you sell vacuum cleaners, you figure it out, and it's painful a lot of the time to do it that way. But some of those lessons are the ones that you never forget. You know, the hardships are what really force you to remember. So don't be afraid of that. I personally am a huge fan of full-time MBA programs if it's up your alley, if it's something that you have the means to do, if it's something that you're interested in. And consider yourselves, assuming most folks here have an engineering background or are going towards one, consider yourselves really fortunate because you have the opportunity to have that technical base and go out and get a business master's degree, an MBA, whereas guys that are learning finance and accounting right now at DePaul or IU don't have the opportunity, at least not very easily, to go get a master's in computer science or mechanical engineering. So I think folks in this room are probably on at least what I consider to be the best path to have a very well-roundedness on both sides of that coin.
I had to learn how to do all that stuff myself. I had to learn how to write a business plan. I went through college in my living room. I mean, I had to learn everything that I couldn't pay someone to do. I had to learn to do it and make it effective. So I see what he means by, you know, both sides. It would have been easier had I, you know, pre-learned all this information and gotten a team together. You know, getting a team together is very important. Getting cheerleaders and people that believe in what you're doing and will devote some time and educate you in some way on how to do this, that, and the other is great, but that's not everybody's reality, you know. So what people won't do or can't do, I had to learn to do it myself, and I became effective in that aspect as well.
I think we've seen also both scenarios, sorry, where, you know, the school route and then kind of just the learning along the way route, both can be successful. One of the things, though, maybe to point out is that even the schooling route, you're still going to be learning along the way.
Yes.
And I think we can all appreciate that. We're all constantly learning all the time. But another thing to think about is, especially with a technical background, I think sometimes as engineers we miss how all the non-engineering skills can really help us in that path. So all the connections, I mean, we've heard about that several times today. Cultivate your connections. The people really will help you along the way. Never underestimate just how different circumstances might put you in the right place at the right time. And it's another way of constantly learning. You know, maximize all your resources, and it will help get you to that next step.
As you guys said, oh, sorry. So we have ideas every day, all the time. And if I had ideas in the bathroom, or when taking a shower, or when you're in class. So you know, I have ideas all the time. When I entered junior high, I had the idea of, you know, wouldn't that be great if I have this really thin pad that I can hold in my hand and I can surf the web. Then 2 years later, Apple just stole my idea, and you know, so I feel like you know, people implement your ideas all the time. So so my question is, how do you overcome the frustration of when you come up with an idea and you feel like I'm just a college student and I don't have the resources to make this idea a reality? How do you overcome that fear when you are a you know, poor college kid and you don't have any resources on your hand at this moment? So yeah.
Well, I'm overcome every time I go on the internet and I see some mother that has made a sponge and she's making $10 million from just making a phone call and someone liked it, and you know, whether it happened that way or didn't is inspirational. That, you know, someone that, you know, does not have the background, the training, and the financial fortitude to do this, that, and the other can still make it to where those same people are going to. So that's my motivation to, you know, everything I do I put in binders. Every product and patent application that I have has its own binder, It gets its own information, it gets its own time, and it grows as it's going to grow, like you would do your children or a plant or anything else. And you just devote that time to that and keep knocking down doors as you go. I mean, it has to do with what work you're willing to put into it is kind of what you're going to get out of it, and exposing your product to people. And I'm not going to say the right people, because it could be one person in this room or everybody in this room that may be the right person. So having that exposure and coming to events like this and speaking to people and explaining to them what you do and how you do it. I was, when I got here and I spoke with a young lady that helped me, get situated, and she said one of the groups are gonna break off and talk about a particular subject. That is the only subject that I work in, and I had no idea. So this is the perfect place for me to be at the perfect time around the perfect people. And again, I don't have a background in business, I don't have a background in engineering, I don't have a background in science, but yet all of my patent applications and my patents cross every genre and are accepted. One of my products was on the Today Show last year. I had developed it, I exposed it, and I think it had been exposed for 6 months. And the Today Show called, and I was like, okay, so you never know what work you're doing is going to pique a particular person or company or group of people's interest. So, I understand the financial aspect of it. I have not always been where I am. When I was working at Michael Jordan's, again, I was making $11 an hour. And I took a couple of dollars from this, and I found that. I took a couple of dollars from that, I found this. And you just kind of inch your way until people believe in what you're doing and say, hey, I want to invest. I want to work with you. I'll donate time. I'll donate materials until you get where you need to be.
I mean, one thing I would say is that it may seem overwhelming that some major corporations have more resources than what you have at your disposal, as you're sitting in your dorm room or in your apartment or wherever. But the reality is, especially at a great school like Rose-Hulman, is that the resources you need are out there somewhere in our network base, here on campus, student projects, Rose-Hulman venture. I mean, everything you could ever want. There are investors in the room here today. I mean, anything from capital to student resources, it's all out there. You just have to be willing to stick your neck out a little bit and ask for it. And most times, surprisingly, people will go out of their way, even if they're extremely busy, to help an entrepreneur, especially young ones, especially folks that are in school, to be successful, because they've all been there too, and they wouldn't be where they are today if they hadn't had somebody in those shoes 10 years prior to that to help them succeed.
Good morning. Good morning. I've got a question. We work with. Right here. I'm right in front of you.
I'm looking in the back like, where is she?
Right up here. We work with a lot of clients. We're with the Small Business Development Center, and we've noticed that our clients really need a business plan. And Yvette, I heard you touch on that. How important is a business plan? And then do you use it with each of your products, or do you use one overall for your business model?
Well, I found two different things. If I'm talking directly to a corporation that I want to license or purchase my product, they could not care less. They're going to create their own business plan. They have their own version and idea of what they want to do with your product. They just want to have rights to, or they want to own it. When you're looking to get it in a store, if you're looking to get funds for it, that's when you want to know, okay, how does this break down? How are we getting our money back? They want to know the specifics of that particular product. So I've just seen both sides of it. So each product that I develop is its own personality and has its own revenue. Some is, the cups are, something simple. Then I have products that cost $25,000 a pop. So they vary in the size and where these products are going to go, who's going to buy them, who is your target audience or market for what you're doing.
I think from a ventures perspective, we see that the business plan is very important for our clients to have underway by the time they come to us, because we're going to help them through their development stages. And often as you start to develop your products, you realize certain things, and your scope is going to go this way and that way. And you learn as you go along. You're changing some of your initial objectives, and many people at that time start to re-examine their business plan and say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this is going to be a huge hurdle. So the more prepared you are in terms of what your targets are, like you were saying, and how you're going to bring that product to the commercialization stage, the more you're going to be able to navigate through that development stage. So from our perspective, our best clients are the ones who have really worked out a lot of the possibilities of that already in their minds.
All right. Well, with that, we're out of time.